GM. Today's lesson is going to be about momentum and urgency. So, I got a question from a student who's struggling to keep momentum, saying that when I get into my groove, when I seem to get into a groove with my 9 to 5, with the real world, with my finances, I run into some kind of financial hardship. Whether it's a car breaking down, having to pay for a surgery, unexpected bills, having to hire a lawyer, right? It feels like right whenever I just get past the last struggle and I get back on track, there's another struggle and something else hits. So what can you do? The only way out of this is to go through it, which means you move with urgency. If you need to get momentum, you have to just keep doing what you're doing. The only reason you feel a perceived lack of momentum is very simply because you don't have enough money. That's it. There's no such thing as a lack of momentum here. Let me explain it another way. If I get my car breaking down, it doesn't set me back because it's a very, very small fraction of my net worth, right? So in your current situation, your car breaking down might require you to spend like a month's worth of savings or even a month's worth of salary or a significant portion of your savings. So it seems like it's interrupting your momentum, but it's not really, right? It's only perceived that way in your head. Now I get it, and I've absolutely been there, where you're trying to save money up and getting that first 10K, that first 50K, that first 100K, whatever the first big milestone is for you, that is the hardest because, when you get from 1K to 7K and then you have to spend 3K on something, it does set you back and it does reduce, your net worth literally by 40 or 50%. But the problem is purely rooted in finance, okay? So, instead of focusing on the hardships and self-fulfilling this, right? Don't speak as in, every time I get past one, another one seems to hit me. That's just negative programming. That's a negative spell you're casting on yourself. Your focus needs to be put to where you can control, which is increasing your income. That's all, right? So sit down and say, how can I make more money? What is my plan for making more money? A lot of times when planning ahead, we go way too aspirational. I want $1 million. Okay, everyone does, right? Everyone does. But like this example, your current problem is that relatively small expenses are big for you, okay? So yes, you want $1 million, but wouldn't it be much better to, in 1 year from now, have so much money that your car breaking down doesn't even set you back? And that's not $1 million, right? That could be 50K. So that even if your car breaks down and you have to pay out 4 or 5K, it doesn't crush you. It's a minor setback. It's 6%, 8% of your savings, not 50%, right? An unexpected bill. Unexpected bills, they're not going to be 10 grand, right? If they're unexpected, it's probably $1,000. It's probably $500, probably $1,500 at the most. So if you have 20, 30, 40 times that, it won't be a problem. That should be your number one guiding principle and your goal. You've actually got an opportunity to turn this negative into a positive because that's your big goal, okay? Make that your big goal. Your big goal is to get to whatever number it would be so that a typical emergency financial hardship does not affect you. And you've probably heard about this study that says that once people make above $70,000 or whatever, it's probably fucking $150,000 now with inflation. But for years, my whole life, I always heard that people's happiness does not increase past $70,000 per year. Not linearly, right? Going from 0 to 70,000 a year, there's a literal exponential increase in a person's happiness because it's basically them climbing out of poverty. But from 70 and above, most people, their life doesn't change that much, right? If you get 70k a year, there's not a whole lot more you can do with 80k a year. You're not suddenly going to jump into a new bracket of life and be living lavish, private jets, fucking anyhow, right? So there's parts of that are cope. The part I disagree with is that I believe it's a psyop that's been pushed, an agenda's been pushed to try and make the average person think, oh, it's okay. Well, life doesn't get that much better after 70,000. It fucking does. But there is a grain of truth in it. The basis for that logic about life doesn't get any better, or you don't get really increasingly happier after 70 or 80 or 90, whatever the number is. It's just somewhere under 100,000, right? The basis of that is because at that level, you have everything sorted. You have all the basic needs covered, right? So if something comes up, an emergency, you can pay for it. You can have your home paid, your rent paid, your travel paid, your food paid. You can look after the people you need to look after, right? You might not have massive savings, but you've got the basic necessities done. That's why they say the level of stress decreases massively, because at 40k, depending where you live, like at 40k or 50k or you might be struggling, to cover everything and have some money left over and all that. But you just get to that level, just a little bit higher, and it takes all that stress away. Now, for you, if what I've said in this lesson about struggling to keep momentum, there always seems to be a setback, if that rings true for you, you need to find out what that number is. It's not 70k because I said it. That was just a fucking article. Depending on where you live in the world, it could be less or it could be more. But there is a number, and I don't mean a salary, a number that you need to have, an amount of money, an amount of savings, right, that you need to have that makes it so that an emergency does not affect you. That is a huge goal. That's a massive goal. Most people, well over, I think it's 50-60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have $1,000 for an emergency if they needed it, right? If you have comfortably enough money to cover any emergency, that is a really good first goal. And then once you get to that, you're going to feel a weight lifted off your shoulders. And then you're like, okay, boom, let's go. 100k. And after 100k, you're just on a free roll to $1 million. Right? You're like rolling downhill. It's a matter of time. For anyone who does it, anyone gets past that 100k marker, you're on the way. It could take years, but it's so much easier than the 0 to 100. But forget about the 0 to 100 if you need to get to first 30k, 40k, 50, whatever it is, get to that number so that you can't have these setbacks. So that these setbacks are small dents, not knocking you back 50%. And if you notice it keeps happening, it means you need to earn more. Back to the original point. Okay? You get a car breaking down, okay. You then have to have a surgery, okay. You then have to hire a lawyer, unexpected, okay. But that's 4 different things that have happened in the last however long, number of months or years. That just means then the finances need to be higher. You need to figure it out. That might be overtime, extra work, starting a side hustle, getting a new job, getting a promotion, getting an upgrade, in your career. There has to be something. It's your life. You have to plan it. You have to take control of it. And use that fuel to push towards the number you need. A lot of times when I audit the big goals, students don't really know why they want a certain number, right? The relevance, SMART, S-M-A-R-T, the R, relevance, the why do you want it? A lot of times people can't really answer it. That's why they say $1 million, because it's like, oh, well, everyone wants to be a millionaire. Okay. But your first target being 50k because you need to make sure that these setbacks do not derail your momentum, that's a big, big reason. That's a strong why. And that'll keep you moving, keep you motivated.